All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD or Application and Website Development program, and in particular the AWD1100 C# programming class, I've noticed and I've heard from a couple of the students of the class that even though they're working hard on doing the work in the class, that they're still struggling. So I've decided to take an application that I thought everybody would be able to understand, and that is a simple payroll application, and add some, basically tailor it for each chapter that we're going over. So chapter 1, I did not create an application. I just talked a little bit because it was about getting started with Visual Studio. In chapter 2, rather than designing a Windows Forms application, I created a simple console payroll application. Then in chapter 3, I did code or design, code, and test a Windows Forms application. Now, one thing I've noticed, and I guess I was not really aware of this myself, was that what I wanted to do was to make a copy of this. And when I went in there, you'll notice if you look on here, there's no copy. There's a copy full path, but there's no copy. So what I did was I went back out to Windows, right mouse clicked on the Chapter 3 project, did a copy and paste, and renamed it Chapter 4. Then I brought up the project, and when I did, notice it's not here, so I think I will be able to add it, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to right mouse click, choose Add, Existing Project, and again I'm going to come out to where this is, which is on my desktop. It's called Payroll, and there's Chapter 4, Windows Forms. I'm going to click Open, and right there, and hopefully it'll bring it in okay. It says it already contains an item named this. So I'm going to see if I can rename this. I don't know if this will work or not. Well, according to that, it brought it in. All right, let's check real quick and see what it's going to still say 3 on it. Let's see if it runs, though. That's what I'm more concerned with. And it looks like it does. Good, that's a great start. So I'm going to do a few things to differentiate this from the last one. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change, where am I here? Bring this up. Close it, make sure I'm bringing up the right one here. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name of the form from Form Payroll Chapter 3 to Form Payroll Chapter 4. All right, I'm going to keep everything that's in here, except I want to change the writing again so that it says Chapter 4. And that's weird because that didn't change. That is very strange. I've got a feeling it's still bringing up the one from Chapter 3, but it says here Chapter. Now that's that's the form text. I'm sorry. So let's bring up the label here, and we'll change the text on the label. Label title is fine, but I want this to say Chapter 4. That's what I'm looking for. Plus, because I'm just a little bit different this way, I like each of my projects to have their own distinct color. So the other one was kind of that orangish. I'm just going to pick whatever's next to it, which is this one. All right, and I will change the color of this field as well. Okay, so now let's go back and take a look in our textbook and see in Chapter 4, which is what we're talking about right now. It's working with numeric and string data. So let's see what's in here. All right, so how to work with the built-in data types. So what do we have? Some casting, some strings, some data types, scope, enumerations, nullable types, etc. So let's see if there's anything in here we can use. So the built-in data types, you can see there's a lot of them here. The first thing that came to mind to me as far as something that we might want to change in here would be the following, and that is to go back here. Oops. To go back here and change virtually everything that I've got in my code, everything that's in here that's a double, and make it a decimal. All right, it says it replaced 7 things. Now I know it's going to give me some errors, and that's okay. We'll fix these. These errors that are here, I believe when you use a decimal, it wants the letter M in there, and it should take either an uppercase or a lowercase m. And this will all be 2 decimal with it's got to be a big D. All right, well, that's pretty good. That didn't take long to fix those errors up. All right, I want to make sure I didn't break anything, so let's save it, run it again. And again, I'll come in here, put my name, 40 and 40, and it should give me 1600, and it does. Good. All right, so far, so good. So that's the first thing. Not that it was a big change, but I changed my double to a decimal. And decimal is more reflective of the fact that what we're using in here, we're working with dollars and cents. So decimal seemed to make more sense as a built-in type. All right. Let's take a quick look. I'm going to go back here. So right now, let's see. When I click the calculate button, what's it doing? It's not really doing that much of anything. And in the next coming chapters, I'm going to come in and add some validation. So I'm also going to add some modularization. But I'm trying to keep in step with what is in the particular chapter that I'm going through. So right now, I don't want to make those changes yet. All right. So they talk about constants in here. You know what? Let's go add some constants. All right. Let's suppose that the most hours that you can work in a week is 84, and that comes from 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll also assume an hourly rate of, let's say the most somebody can make is $99.99. Again, those are just truly arbitrary values. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add, and typically you add your constants on the top of the program because they're global. So I'm going to declare and initialize global constants. All right, now I'm going to declare and initialize these, but since it's not until the next chapter that we go over control structures, I'm not going to enforce the fact that I'm using them. But I'll have here const int min hours, and we're going to set that equal to 0. It's the minimum number of hours somebody can work in a week. Max hours, we already said, was going to be equal to 84. Now, why would you work 0 hours? Well, it could be you were on vacation that week, you were sick that week. It could be a lot of different things. And I'm not sure what it would be, but that's the way I'm setting it up. All right. And then let's also have a const decimal. And we'll call this min rate. And that's the smallest amount of money somebody can make. Well, let's suppose it's possible for somebody to come in here and be it's got to be an M in there as well. So let's suppose that somebody comes in there and they are a volunteer at this company. I don't know what the company does, makes, etc. So that's what I'm saying. It could happen. That's all I'm saying here is it could happen. All right. So I'm going to make another const decimal, and it'll be max rate. And I'm going to set that equal to 99.99 M. All right, so are those all my constants? Well, I'm going to add a couple more that we're going to end up using in the next chapter. We can put comments here, which wouldn't be a terrible idea. Minimum number hours worked in week. Maximum number of hours worked in week. Minimum hourly rate. And maximum hourly rates. Now, a couple more things. Just, you hear the noise here. I'm at my house. I don't normally tape from home, but I just decided to do it this weekend. Also, I've got a dog who's a little bit different. So if she starts barking, I'm going to have to quick pause the video. So here's another constant. I'm going to make this, we'll make these both decimal also. And I'm going to call this here max non-OT. And that's the most number of hours you could possibly work without accruing any overtime. So that's going to be 40. And that's going to be maximum notice there's spelling errors in here, so I'm fixing those. Non-overtime hours worked. And we'll also have an OT rate. We'll make that a decimal also. And we'll set that equal to 1.5. I mean, that's time and a half. And that pretty much is, kind of a standard agreed to, I think, overtime rate. Oops. Again, I need an M in here. And we'll say for that overtime rate. Now, I'm setting up these 6 constants, but I'm not going to use them in this example. But since this chapter doesn't have, it appears at least a lot in it that I'm going to need to do here, it gives me a little chance to explain the things that I am doing. All right, so let's jump back into the book. All right. How to code arithmetic expressions. Well, you already see some of those arithmetic expressions, not really very many right now. But you know what? Let's take a look back at our program here. Oops. And this is what it looks like right now. It's totally fine. Let's see. This is all the stuff that's in here, and I believe it's locked right now. It is. But everything that's in here so far, as far as I can tell, and I'm going to just grab these, that's for an individual employee. So I'm going to move this over. All right. And let's see. I'm going to go in and make a couple changes in here. Okay. Now this is going to look a little funky. I'm going to have to make this a little bit bigger. So this is going to be my total employees right here. And I'm going to have a thing here too for total gross pay. And later I might decide that I want to add even more things to this. Don't know yet. All right. So this will be, let's see, we'll change this label here to label total number of employees. And I'm going to pretty much have the same thing in here. I'm a little hand-strong as far as room, so I'll put total number employees like that. That looks okay. And this one I'm just going to change to total gross pay. And that should work out just fine. And I'm going to have to change the name up here too for the label to total gross pay. And then finally, I'm going to have to come in here and do these. Before I do that, though, I'm going to just grab this and I'm going to lock this back into place again. There we go. All right. And again, this is stuff that I'm putting in here so that I'm able to go over with you exactly what I'm doing, I guess. You know, I could have moved this down and then put the total number of employees down here. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. All right. So it's not perfect by any means, but it's coming together. So this was label total number of employees. And this will be text box total number of employees. And this was label total gross pay. So as you'd probably guess, this will become text box total gross pay. Now, if I wanted to, I could come in here and I could give the high gross pay, the average gross pay. We may end up doing that when we come in here for Chapter 8 and we start going over arrays, okay? But for now, I'm just going to hold off on that and just leave it the way that it is. All right, I guess everything is locked up again, so that's good. Let's jump back into our book. All right, so I'm going to be able to use, for example, I'm going to be able to use the, well, they don't show it here yet, but the plus equals, we'll use that. And I think that's right here. So we'll use the plus equals. And how will we do that? Well, we're going to say the total gross pay plus equals the gross pay. So we'll want to take the current gross pay that we've just calculated, and we will want to add that to our total gross pay counter. Plus, we'll use the plus plus operator that was over here to add 1 every time we put in a new employee. Okay. Now, one thing to realize as we're working on this, again, I know I've said it already, but I want to keep saying it, and that is the fact that I am not, repeat, I am not doing any validation here. So this program is going to blow up if I put non-numeric things, values in fields that expect to be numeric. All right, so don't let that worry you. We're going to start handling that in the next chapter. Casting, I don't know if I'll have a sense or a reason to use casting in here, but we'll take a look. I don't think so, though. The math class, well, again, we don't need power, we don't need square root. Rounding is going to be done for us automatically by choosing the currency data type. If we didn't want to do that, we could do something like this, where we would be calling math.round and it would grab that and it would set it to 2 decimal places, if indeed we wanted to do that. So you can see there's examples here of that, where they take a number and they round it to 2 decimal places, the example that's here. Okay. All right, let's take a look at strings and see if there's anything in there. Well, let's suppose when we're all done, what we want to do is we want to build an entire string that's got all of the information for that employee. It'll be on the screen, but let's just say we wanted to build it as well and put it into a message box. And I'm doing that so that we're going to be able to concatenate a couple strings together. That's the main reason. So in other words, when we run this, so if I run this and I put Jeff, Scott, 40, 10, and I click calculate, not only is it going to put 400 here, not only will it add 1 to the employees, not only will it add 400 to the total pay, but I'll also get a message box that will print out, that will have all of the information in there for me. Okay, so like I said, that's good, bad, or indifferent. That's just the way that I'm going to do it. So I'm going to add another variable in here. It's going to be of type string, and we'll just call it emp info for employee information. We're going to set that equal to the empty string. And again, I could really put some comments in here as well, although the names are pretty reflective of what's going on here. but again, hours worked, hourly rates, gross pay, which again is hours worked times the hourly rate. And this will be all employee info, and I'm just going to say concatenated because that's what I'm going to do. All right. So I'm getting the green squigglies here because I'm not using that yet, but we will at the end. All right. I don't know how much more is in this chapter, so let's take a quick look. Including special characters and strings. We can do that. I think we've done some of that already. I said, in my humble opinion, the \n and the \t are the two of these escape sequences you're going to use out of all the ones that you can possibly use. These are the two you'll use 99.9% of the time. All right. So, but we'll add that into our message box so to pretty it up a little bit. The converting to different types, we're going to do more of this converting to different types in the next chapter. We'll use the convert to. All right. So they've got this. And like I said, I don't mean to put everything off. I'm sure that the next chapter, the information that we're going over in the next chapter will be, the presentation will be longer because there's more terminology and more things to go over. Okay. We've already done a little bit of formatting on strings in some of the other programs, but we'll continue that here. Scope we're not going to use. We're doing everything right inside of the routine that we're in right now. We're going to start breaking this up in the next chapter. Enumerations, we'll add that in a later chapter. An enumerated data type is a user-defined data type. What I'd like to eventually get to when we get to the object-oriented programming section would be to talk about things like different employee types and be able to handle that in this program. We'll see how that works. Okay, I'm just checking my time here. The coalescing operator, all that says is the stuff that's in here can possibly be null. All right, so we literally could put those in everything that we're doing if we wanted to do that. In other words, we could come back in here and we could change the stuff that we've got here. So for instance, maybe we don't know what a person is going to, I might get errors on these. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it right away. But I'm going to take all of these and set all of them to null. All right, so doing that, by putting that in there, these all have to change, I believe, to null. And I think the error will go away then. Oh, maybe not. Well, did I do it wrong? Oh, you put it after the data type, not after the name of the variable. So it's got to be decimal, question mark. There we go. That worked. Question mark, and question mark. And all these will have to be reset to null. And all these question marks here will have to be removed. All right. So as soon as I change all of these to null, I should be okay. Null is a very different type of animal because null literally means unknown. All right. Pretty this back up again. All right. Well, does it not like strings, allowing strings to be null? Technically, I think I should actually leave that as the empty string, but not necessary or allowed. Okay, great. Good to know. So we'll just go back and we'll make that the empty string. That's all. And the error will go away. Okay. All right, now we've got this no overloaded toString method takes one argument. That's this one. Not sure why we're getting the error on that. I'm sure it has something to do with this right here. Right, but we'll go back and we'll take a look at that again. I'm not going to worry about that for right now. Wanted to see where I was and if we have basically finished the stuff that's in there. So they go back and they redo the invoice application. That's fine. So before I jump into the next chapter, let's fix this up. All right. So we're going to have control structures in the next chapter. So the next chapter, the lecture will be quite a bit longer. I want to look in here. Okay, it doesn't like this because I'm allowing nulls here. So I'm going to change this to 0.0, which I think is going to make this error here go away as soon as I remove the question mark. And I need the M in there as well. All right. Oh, see now everything that's in here, what it's saying is I might be doing math on things that I'm allowing to be null, and it won't let me. So this is not a good example of when to use this question mark. I'm going to get rid of all of them, change all of them back to 0.0 M. All right, that should have cleaned out all the errors that I had, and you can see they're all gone now. So let's talk about what else we want to do. All right, well, we're going to need two more variables in here. All right, the first one will be a decimal, and it'll be called tot gross pay, and it'll be our total gross pay. Again, 0.0 M. And this will be total gross pay all employees. All right. And then we'll have an int tot employees, set that equal to 0. And that'll be total number of employees. All right, so that's all good. See my little idiosyncrasies here. So we've got all that. This is going to hold every bit of information. We're going to put that into a message box. All right. This I'm going to have to increment every time by the current gross pay, and this I'm going to have to increment every time by the total number of employees. Now I've got my choice here. You'll notice that I have a clear. Do I want a clear and a clear all? In other words, when I do clear right now, it's going to clear this, 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 and put this back here. But it's not going to clear my total number of employees and my total gross pay. If I want to do that, I need another button. And just for something different, I'll put that in. What the heck? So I'm going to add another button in here. Put it right here. Looks about right. It's not perfect, but it's okay. And again, I want to come back in and take my interface and lock it up. But I've got to go to that second button that's right here. And this one will, instead of being called clear, it'll be called clear all. All right. I'm hoping it fits all. Good, it does. Good deal. Now, when I call clear all, the first thing I'm going to want to have happen is I'm going to want it to call click, or the clear button. Okay? So I don't really want to come in here and have this clear click routine call this click routine. That's really bad form. I am going to grab this one out and do something typically wouldn't be doing until later. All right, so I'm gonna do a Control X here, and I'm gonna call clear out individual employee info. Okay, and I'm gonna put that right down here. Private void clear out individual employee info. Now I'll put all that back in. Okay. So the first thing I want to do in this routine is to call that to clear out the individual employee info. But what I also want to do is I want to clear out final totals. Now I'm getting this because again this has not yet been written. So private void clear out final totals, and that will simply say there's those two totals. In other words, text box, I want to clear out the text box amount, so the text box total number of them, total gross pay, fine. Dot text equals double quote, the text box total number of employees dot text equals double quote. So I don't want anything in either one of those text boxes, but I want to do more than that. I also want to take my variables that I had down here, the total gross pay and the total number of employees, and I want those to be cleared as well. Now, the problem with that is they're defined up in this routine here, and I want to change them down here. So either I'd have to do some fancy fandangling here, or I'd move them up, and I'm going to make those global. So I'm going to put another comment here that says declare and initialize global variables. And there those are. All right, now I should have no problem doing that with each one. Okay. Get them a little anal here, but I'm lining stuff up. So now I should be able to come in here and also say total number of employees. What did I call those? Or did I not make a variable for those? I just did. So total gross pay and total employees. So I'm going to set the total gross pay equal to 0, 0.0m, and the total employees has got to be equal to 0. Now that's an integer value, so it won't be 0.0. So this is going to clear out those two totals, the total gross pay and the total employees, here and here. If I want to be really technical here, I could put them in the other order to reflect the order they're actually shown on the interface. There. All right. So this method is called when the clear all button is clicked. It will clear out, in fact, that should go up here. That's this one. It will call the clear out individual info method to clear out the individual employee info. It will then call the clear out final totals method to clear out the final total text boxes and accumulators. I think that's good enough. All right. Now, what's the other thing that I want to do here? There's 2 or 3 things left and we're finished. First thing is in here, once I've got an employee in here, once I've got all this stuff, well, let's see, now I've done a gross pay. So I'm going to do, let's see. We've got an hours worked and an hourly rate. So here I'm going to increment the total number of employees accumulator. So I could do this 4 ways. I could say tot employees equals tot employees plus 1. That's the worst way of doing it. Or I could say tot employees plus equal 1, which would be fine. Or I could do tot employees plus plus. Or I could just do the one I'm going to choose, which is plus plus tot employees. All right. And then I'm going to come in here and say, not label, text box total number of employees dot text equals the tot employees dot toString. And since that's just an integer, that's fine the way it is. Now, once I've done my gross pay, I want to add the current gross pay to the total gross pay accumulator. Now, in that case, I can't use plus plus or, I can only do it 2 ways. I can either say tot gross pay equals tot gross pay plus gross pay. But again, that's a little bit verbose. It's wordier than it has to be. So I can just make this plus equals. That makes the most sense to me. And now I can come in here and say my text box total gross pay dot text equals the tot gross pay dot toString, and I want to format that for currency. It's like that. One more thing and we're finished. Test it out. And that is, now I want to build the string. Build string. What do we call emp info, which will print out all of the individual's employee information in a message box. Okay, so I'm going to start by saying, let's see, emp info plus equals, and we're going to say employee name. And this will give us a chance to look at string concatenation, so plus, what did we say in here? We didn't do anything special for the name, so we'll just say text box first name dot text dot toString plus the last name. So we got the first name plus the last name plus a blank line. Okay? All right, now we're just going to keep adding to this. So right now we've got this and this handled. All right, so we'll have to do this and this and this. And I'm going to do that as 3 different three different adds to my emp info. So emp info plus equal employee hours. Pretty this up a little bit. Stop this for a second or you're going to be hearing my clock. All right, so this will be, what do we call that? Hours worked dot toString. And the hours worked, it could potentially have a decimal place. You could work part of an hour. So let's make that F2. I think that'll work, even though that's a decimal. That should work fine. And emp info plus equal employee rate, and that's their pay rate, plus hourly rate dot toString, and that's going to be currency. And then finally, emp info plus equals emp gross pay, and that will be the gross pay dot toString currency. And then finally, we're just going to do a message box of all this info. So message box dot show, the text will be our employee info. All right, our title will just be, we'll call it employee statistics. Good enough. We'll put a message box buttons. We'll have a button, just an OK, because there's not really anything else to do. And a message box icon, and that'll be an information icon. All right, now, unless I've got an error, I think we're done. So let's run it and take a look. So what, oh, I didn't change my startup project, so I'll do that right now. Looks good. So what should happen soon? I'm going to put here Jeff Scott 4010. I'm going to click calculate. This should now be 1. This should say 400, and so should this. Then I'll do it again, and I'll put in Sandy Scott, and I'll put in 1060, and there'll be 600 here. Then there should be 2 here and 1,000 here if everything is working correctly. So let's check it out. And there's my information. I should have added another line break here and here, but that's okay. All right. That all looks good. Now I'm going to clear this. Good. And Sandy Scott will say she worked 10 hours and she makes $60 an hour. Notice now we've got 2 employees, and it added the 400 plus the 600, so that's good. Let's try one more. So we'll put in my daughter Taylor Scott, and we'll say that she worked 50 hours and she makes $50 an hour. That should make this 2,500. This should be 3, and this should go to 3,500. Okay, 2,500, 3, and 3,500. Good. Now I want to clear everything. So I want to clear this and these. That appears to work as well. Well, that's great right now. So the only one thing that I want to do that I didn't is to fix up this thing in here that I'm going to put in for the message box. All right, so after this, let's see. Put a backslash n here, and a backslash n here, and a backslash n here. I'm going to run it one last time to make sure that it looks okay. So Jeff Scott, say I work 35 hours, $20 an hour. This should say 700, 1, and 700. And you notice this is prettied up now. Guess I didn't need a blank space there, but that's okay. All right. So I'm going to clear that. Again, Sandy Scott, say she worked 50 hours at $50 an hour. So this should be 2,500, 2, and 3,200. Good. Clear everything. That looks fine. And end the program. So I don't need this \n here anymore. Let's see. So get rid of that. Let me just run it one last time to make sure everything's working okay. Don Smith 2020. That looks better, except I ran the two names together. But other than that, so I'll clear this. So first name plus, we need a blank space here, plus Jack Wilson 2020. Okay, that all looks good. Mary Jones 30. So that should be 900, 2, and 1,300. And it is. Clear everything, and we're set. All right, that will take care of this lecture. There's only one more thing I want you to watch me do, just so you can see what I am doing here quickly. And that is I'm going to save everything. I'm going to close this, so I've now got my 3 in here. And I'm going to go into here just like I did previously, into Payroll. I'm going to take this, I'm going to say Control-C, Control-V, all right? And I'm going to come in here and change this to 05, Windows Forms copy. And I have to change this to a 5 as well. Now, if that all worked okay, if I did it correctly, and you really shouldn't be doing things the way I'm doing them, probably, but I am anyway. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to right mouse click on my solution. I'm going to choose Add Existing Project. I'm going to come back here to my Payroll, find Windows my 5, that one, and there it added it. All right, so if I bring the form up, again, the two changes I made previously, that is, I want to change the name here to 5, on here to 5. There's a couple more changes. And I want to change my color. So this one's a yellow. All right, and I want that to say Chapter 5 instead of 4. Now, in this one, and I'm not doing it right now, but in this one, when I do this application, got to reset my start project. But on this one, it's going to have a lot more in it. I'm going to configure overtime. All right. And it's going to have in here if statements, etc. All right. So I'm going to add that material in. Okay. So I'll be back with that in just a couple minutes.